Okay, I'm about to make cinnamon rolls. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn my stove on to medium heat, and I'm gonna add 4 cups of milk. Oh, I'm sorry, no, 2 cups of milk. I'm gonna add 2 cups of milk to my pot. Yep, I'm gonna add 2 cups of milk to my pot. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my candy thermometer. I'm gonna put it in my pot. And then I'm gonna allow my milk. See, that says 54 degrees. I'm gonna let it get up to 100 degrees before I get started. Okay, so my milk is now 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove it from the heat. I'm gonna turn off my heat. Actually, it got a little bit hotter than 100 degrees. So I'm just gonna let it cool down just a little bit. It's 114 degrees. I'm gonna let it cool down a little bit until it gets to 100 degrees. Okay, so I let this cool down for a little bit, and it's about 104 degrees, which is fine. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take 1 stick of butter, and I'm gonna heat it up in my microwave. And while I'm heating that up in my microwave, I'm gonna remove my candy thermometer. From my bowl. I'm gonna pour my milk into my bowl. Then I'm gonna add. Hold on 1 second. Right, I'm gonna add. My butter's almost done melting. Okay, my butter is done melting. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add my melted butter. Add my 1 stick of melted butter. Then I'm gonna add 2 1/4 teaspoons of dry instant yeast. Two and 1/4 teaspoons of dry instant yeast. Two and 1/4 teaspoons. Then I'm just going to mix everything around and incorporate everything. Make sure the yeast is totally dissolved. Make sure there's no lumps. See, it's lumping to the back of my spoon, so I'm just gonna Make sure it incorporates. Make sure all my yeast is incorporated and dissolved. The milk kind of helps, the warm milk helps it dissolve and incorporate. And this is the most important part of the process. When you bloom your yeast and incorporate it, make sure it's incorporated into the milk. Try to make sure there's no more lumps and it's fully dissolved into the milk. I'm just going to eliminate any lumps from my yeast. Just keep stirring until you don't see any lumps anymore. And it's fully dissolved into the yeast. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn my oven on and let my oven get hot, you know, for like maybe a couple minutes. So yeah, so I'm going to cover this. I'm going to cover this and I'm going to let my oven get hot, heat up a little bit. Then I'm going to cut it off and let some of the heat out of my oven. And then I'm just going to let it sit in my oven, sit in a warm environment for about 10 or 15 minutes to bloom. But before you put it in the oven, you want to add half a cup of granulated sugar as well before you put it in the oven. Half a cup of granulated sugar. That gives the yeast something to feed on. It helps the bacteria grow and gives it something to feed on. before you put it in the oven. Okay, so I let my yeast bloom for 15 minutes. And as you can see, there's bubbles. Like there's little pocket, there's bubbles showing that the yeast is ready and that it's grown. And it's been bloomed properly. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 4 cups of flour to this bowl. I'm going to add 4 cups of flour to my bowl. That's 2 cups. And that's another 2 cups. That's 4 cups. Then I'm just going to incorporate my flour. Into my yeast mixture. Or into this mixture. I'm going to incorporate my flour into it. And I'm just going to mix it until there's no lumps in it. Until it's nice and smooth. And it's okay for the dough to be wet and sticky. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover it. Cover my dough. And I'm going to let it bloom again for 1 hour. Let it rise for 1 hour. And again, I'm going to heat the oven up a little bit. Turn it off and put it in the oven so it rises in a warm environment. Okay, and while my yeast is blooming, I'm going to make the filling for the cinnamon roll. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1.5 sticks of butter. 1.5 sticks of butter to my bowl. And I'm going to cream my butter. This is butter that I let sit and come to room temperature. I had to let it come to room temperature for about half an hour. Took it out of the refrigerator, took the butter out, and just let it come to room temperature for about half an hour. Took it out after I took it out of the refrigerator. So now once it's like a margarine-like consistency, I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of light brown sugar. Yeah, 3/4 of a cup of light brown sugar. Yep, 3/4 of a cup of light brown sugar. And 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. Two tablespoons of cinnamon. Then I'm just going to incorporate everything in. Into my butter. Smooth it out. Make sure everything is perfectly incorporated. Make sure there's no butter streaks in there. Make sure everything is just brown and perfectly incorporated. If you see any streaks in it, just incorporate it into the filling until you get perfect. Yeah, perfectly brown filling, and that's your filling. Okay, so now I'm going to make the icing also while I'm letting it bloom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of cream cheese to my bowl. You can make it yourself, or you can, buy it already made. I'm just going to cream the cheese. I'm going to flatten it out a little bit. Then I'm going to take 2 tablespoons of butter and I'm going to melt it. Then I'm going to add my melted butter to my cream cheese straight out of the microwave. And I'm just going to incorporate it in. Until my cream cheese almost liquefies. Incorporate it in. Yep, until my cream cheese gets really soft and smooth. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. This is homemade vanilla extract. Those are Madagascar vanilla beans. 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And 4 tablespoons of milk. I'm just going to incorporate that into my cream cheese. I'm going to try to liquefy the cream cheese. As much as I can. So it's almost like liquid. I'm almost going to try to liquefy my cream cheese. Switch to my whisk and just try to liquefy it. Whip it until it's like liquid. Until there's no lumps. Yep, and once there's no lumps in it, as you can see, there's no lumps. I'm going to add 1 cup of powdered sugar. One cup of powdered sugar. I'm just going to incorporate my powdered sugar. Get until there's no lumps. Whip it until there's no lumps. As you can see, there's no lumps. And that's what you want. That's your icing. That's what you want.